Once the fluid is drained, dispose of it properly. There are 3 bolts that attach the reservoir tank. Remove the 3 bolts and pull the reservoir tank out of position in order to dump it into the bucket. After you've removed the coolant reservoir, disconnect the coolant reservoir hose from the radiator housing. From the radiator fill section, use a pair of pliers to gently loosen the tube. The radiator tank is plastic, so be careful not to break it off. You're going to gently turn it with a pair of pliers in order to loosen it. Once it's loose, you can disconnect the tube from the radiator. Next, we're going to separate the fan shroud from the radiator. To separate the fan shroud, there is a bolt here, as well as on the left side of the engine, that will need to be removed. So once the fan shroud is separated, you're not going to actually remove it. You're just going to separate it from the radiator. Once it's separated, you can remove the upper and lower radiator hoses. Now may be a good time to change the hoses, as well as the thermostat, which I'll cover in another video. Now, in order to help reposition the fan shroud, we'll need to remove the 2 brackets for the metal tube that's located underneath the radiator housing. There are 2 bolts here and here that will need to be removed so that the tube can be pushed out of the way in order for the fan shroud to be pushed further back and out of the way of the radiator, which will help you get the radiator out. If you plan to replace the upper hose and or the thermostat at this time, you'll need to remove the top engine cover. There are 2 10mm bolts holding it in place. Remove the bolts on the left and the right side in order to remove the top engine cover. Radiator hoses on this application use a traditional automotive clamp. I highly recommend that you use the proper clamp tool to remove these clamps. Particularly the bottom clamps are difficult to get to, and so this tool allows you to better access and remove the clamp as needed. Use a large channel lock plier along with a twisting motion to loosen the hose in order to remove it. The lower radiator hose connects to the thermostat at the top of the engine. You can access it on the right hand side in close proximity to the upper radiator hose, but to the right. In order to replace the thermostat, you'll need to remove the two bolts. Remove the hose using a hose clamp removal tool. Use a large channel lock plier to twist the hose off of the thermostat housing. So let's have a closer look at how the radiator is actually configured. Now this is facing the radiator. On the left hand side is the driver's side, and on the right hand side is the passenger side, of course. At the very top you have the radiator cap, the upper hose inlet, and at the bottom the drain plug. On the right hand side you have cooling tube hoses connected, as well as the lower radiator hose inlet. These cooling tube inlets, indicated by the red caps, will also need to be removed prior to removing the radiator.